All right, everyone, we are just 2 days away from the Tony Awards, and I don't know what to predict, so I'm turning to two of our really fervent forum posters, Sam Eckmann and David Buchanan. Now, Sam, I think in the forums you go by
I
what
go
name?
by my name.
Yeah, Sam's an actor, so that's
Transparent.
smart. And David, you are in the forums?
Piano Man with two N's.
Okay. Was Piano Man with one N taken, or is this some...
No, if it was Piano Man with one N, I was afraid it would come off as I'm like a fervent Billy Joel fan, and that's not the case. So yeah, so the second N differentiates a little bit.
Oh, okay. You're a fervent fan of either Manfred Mann or the philosopher. So.
Amy Mann, actually. I don't know if you've heard of her, but...
Yeah. No, I'm old, but yes, I have heard of Amy Mann.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
Yeah, their combined ages is less than mine, just so you know. They know their Tony. So what I need help on with first is really the only Tony that matters commercially, which is Best Musical. I mean, we saw that last year with Gentleman's Guide winning and turning a profit. So this year, our experts are coming down in favor of American in Paris, but everyone else, like the top 24 users from last year who did better than us in predicting the Tonys, all our users, they're saying Fun Home. So guys, tell me, what's going to win on Sunday night? David?
I've had Fun Home since we did our first video the morning of nominations, and the more I read as we get closer, the more I'm feeling like there's a groundswell for American in Paris, and I'm tempted to switch. I haven't yet, but I'm actually a lot more torn on this category than I thought I would be.
And Sam?
I'm sticking with Fun Home right now. I think it's going to be close. I think American in Paris has done a really great job at building a ton of support, and they're doing really well with sales, especially in that huge theater. But I'm sticking with Fun Home. I think it just has kind of captured the theater zeitgeist at the moment.
You know, and it's interesting in terms of Fun Home, because it transferred from off-Broadway, it wasn't eligible at some of these precursor awards, like the Outer Critics Circle and the Drama Desk that we just had last Sunday. And but American Paris was. It won Outer Critics, but then it lost at Drama Desk to Hamilton. And you know, the Drama Desk, which is an off-Broadway show, is coming to Broadway. The Drama Desk is kind of in love with Broadway when it comes to the winners. So do you think that the loss of American in Paris at Drama Desk is a bad sign for it at the Tonys, that it couldn't win over those voters who are assotted with Broadway? What do you think, Sam?
Well, I think also Broadway shows tend to win at that award show because the voters probably have all seen the Broadway stuff, whereas some of them probably haven't seen a lot of the off-Broadway things, despite those getting nominated. And Hamilton was just kind of this huge behemoth, as of right now, that's going to sweep next year's Tonys, basically. But at the Drama Desks, Fun Home was actually able to get both Judy Kuhn and Sidney Lucas to make appearance there. Judy Kuhn sang over the In Memoriam. Sidney Lucas did an introduction with her brother, who's in The King and I. And so they were still able to make an appearance there. I think American Paris still did well. What I was sort of interested by was that Robert Fairchild was actually able to score actor there. I didn't expect him to do that, but
and he's the lead. Yeah, now he's the New York City ballet dancer who's come to Broadway for the first time. And it's interesting because I think about South Pacific a few years ago, and I'm gonna butcher his name as I did back then. I think Paolo Zott, maybe something like
yes.
that. Something like that.
Z-O-T.
Yeah. He won musical actor for South Pacific. It was an opera star, came to Broadway. I guess the rap against Fairchild's been perhaps the singing not so great, the acting not so great. And then Michael Cerveris from Fun Home has this, you know, very meaty acting role. But just so in terms of, but before we get into that too much, so for Best Musical, really, it's a flip of the coin? Is that what I should do? I mean, is that...
Well, I also think Fun Home has done a very good job at getting the word out and campaigning as the smart musical choice and the original choice. You know, they made the appearances at the drama desk. They have a dedicated article in the Times about Judy Kuhn's song, which really puts her in a great light for her category.
Right.
Evie Windsor just had a Playbill article really going to bat for Lisa Cron and Janine Tesori, which is a huge love letter to them. And they've sort of had all these support articles going out. So everywhere you turn, if you're reading anything about theater, you're constantly seeing something really positive and great about Fun Home all over the place. So I'm giving them the edge because I just think it's the smarter musical, and I think it has the original score, and it's an incredible score.
Yeah, and not only that, I think we all agree it's front runner for book and score.
Right.
I don't think anything is going to take those over Fun Home, and I would have a very hard time predicting it to win those two key categories and not win Best Musical.
And it could win director too.
It could, yeah. I have it for director right now. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, it reminds me of, I guess, 2004, before you children were even born, probably. But it was Avenue Q versus Wicked, and I guess I'm mindful of that, Sam. What you're saying about the little musical Avenue Q winning over Wicked, this huge commercial hit. It's just that, I mean, Avenue Q was fun. I mean, Fun Home ain't fun, right? I mean, it's well, I just want to say what it's about. It's about based on a graphic novel. It's a lesbian coming of age in a small town in Pennsylvania. Turns out her father's closeted, and spoiler alert, kills himself. Yay! That's what I think of when I think of a fun night at the theater. I mean, Tony voters aren't sort of hipsters like you two. I mean, they're old farts like me that sort of struggle to get up the aisle. Don't you? Do you really see them embracing that kind of edgy fare?
Well, I think it is hard to sort of describe Fun Home in a really marketable way because of the subject matter, but his suicide actually isn't a spoiler alert. They come out and say that at the very beginning, and I think despite dealing with some really heavy stuff, you never feel like, oh God, I had to sit through this like slog of heavy emotions. They find a lot of humor in it, and the way it's presented is not inaccessible at all.
And David, since you've been, David, you've been backing it since the nomination, so there's.
Yeah, American in Paris definitely overperformed for me on nomination morning. We knew it had a lot of great press. It got rave reviews, but I thought before nominations came out that this would really be a race between Fun Home and Something Rotten.
That's right.
And that is kind of, I think I'm predicting it to win one award, Something Rotten, right now, so that really took a back seat. And from the morning of nominations where American in Paris overperformed, I thought it overperformed, it's just kind of kept that momentum where I really think this is a closer race than I give it credit for in the beginning.
Right, both Fun Home and American in Paris have a dozen nominations, Something Rotten, which is really a wonderful original musical about the very first musical in the time of Shakespeare. It has 10 nominations. And I read an interesting article in New York the other day that referenced the road producers, because I've always said, look, it's the road producers that make or break it, and you've got a big house in Omaha, you can do a better job bringing people in with American in Paris than you can with Fun Home. But it seemed to be that they were only maybe about 10% of the voters. Oh gosh, we've just lost Sam. Maybe he didn't like what I was saying, but hopefully he'll be coming back any minute. So now we can, you and I, David, can talk and really get down to this. But
yeah, go ahead.
No. But I was surprised that if that number is true, that the road producers are only 10%.
Yeah. And not only that, that is true. The statistic is low. I think it's maybe a theory that some people have overhyped. But not only that, but almost every musical and musical revival that have been nominated this year have announced a tour.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like this year over all of the recent years, all these shows have kind of tried to grab that group by saying, well, we're going on tour. And they announced it way before the deadline today for ballots. So I think that's almost leveling the playing field now.
And has Fun Home announced a tour?
Yeah, Fun Home, American in Paris, Something Rotten. The Visit has not. The King and I, On the Town.
Wow.
There's two that I didn't mention that have not announced tours yet.
Yeah, yeah. So now it's interesting, just to because I'm still don't know which I'm going to predict, and because I'm the
Yeah.
last one to predict, I get to turn off the prediction center. So I probably don't look at my predictions, people, as any kind of a because it might change. I'm saying American in Paris now, but it could easily change.
Yeah.
Um, so best actor in a musical. So I think it's Robert Fairchild versus Michael Cerveris, right? American in Paris versus Fun Home. Um, could Brian Darcy James from Something Rotten spoil? Could he kind of come down the middle? What do you think, Sam?
Well, I was hoping he could. I really liked him in Something Rotten, but he hasn't. I mean, he hasn't really taken home any awards yet,
Right.
where he could have at the Outer Critics Circle and Drama Desk. And you would think a performance like that would be really up their alley. But I think the Robert Fairchild has been really sort of charming and endearing, and very enthusiastic, and sort of winning over people in all of his appearances. And I think that's going to help him a lot. And Michael Cerveris is a big Broadway veteran and a huge industry favorite, so it does come down between them. I'm still kind of up in the air on that one.
And David, what about you? Because it's interesting with the Tonys where they do really seem to welcome Broadway newcomers. Like that's something where that's not a rap against you. They kind of like the Emmys kind of go for the same thing year after year after year, but the Tonys, like if you're a newcomer, it's okay. You know, you
Right, right. Yeah, this is another one that since the nominations, I was really confident in Cerberus, and I've been wavering again, thinking Fairchild is gaining momentum. The New York Times voter poll that was published yesterday kind of made me more confident in my Cerberus prediction, but also that poll, which we've referenced a few times now, is only of 44 of the 844 voters. So it's really not a great barometer. And I know, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago when Tracy Letts won for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
They said that as much, love for that performance, Tom Hanks takes it in a landslide, and I stupidly changed my prediction based on their outlook.
well,
I had Tracy Letts like the whole season because it's one of my favorite performances. I don't think I've seen anything better on stage than Tracy Letts. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and then the poll came out a few days before, and I said, well, I've got to put Hanks now, and that really did me a disservice. So I take everything they say with a grain of salt.
well,
It's
it's
the exact same thing that year.
little insider info there. I was in the press room. Tracy Letts came back. Now, this is a guy who wrote August Osage County, won the Tony for that. He's also an actor. He's just won the Tony. And what did the first thing he said when he came back? He started calling out by name the experts at Gold Derby that had not predicted him to win.
Oh, shut
And
up.
this is what he decided to spend his first couple of minutes on, holding his Tony in there and saying, David Shewer, you didn't predict me. Brian Lipton, you didn't predict me.
That's great.
Sort of hiding in the back because I think we all predicted Tom Hanks. But this is so people obsess about all this, including the nominees. So the category I think I've been obsessing about for a year since Kelly O'Hara lost last year when she shouldn't have for Bridges of Madison County is Best Actress in a Musical. And I know we talked about it on nominations morning. So tell me, guys, is Kelly O'Hara finally going to win a Tony on her 6th nomination with this role in The King and I? Or is she cursed like Deborah Carr, who did it in the movie and never won an Oscar despite 6 nominations, including one for that role? Sam, you're smiling. What do you...
I mean, that part has been lucky on Broadway, not on Oscars, but on Broadway, Donna Murphy and Gertrude Lawrence won for it. But she might be the yin to Audra McDonald's yang and have 6 losses instead of 6 wins. I don't know. I just think Kristen Chenoweth is kind of like performing the role of her lifetime, and they're both great, and I think it'll be close. But I'm going with Chenoweth right now.
And so this is on the 20th century. It's a revival of a musical from the 70s. Which was a musical version of a film from the 30s, kind of a farce set on a train, the 20th century. And Kristen Chenoweth plays this girl who rises up from rags to riches. She's a big-time movie star. What's interesting about that is this is a role that back in the 70s was played by Madeline Kahn, Kristen Chenoweth's idol. Madeline Kahn had some troubles, ended up leaving the show, was nominated for a Tony but didn't win. So Kristen Chenoweth, I mean, she is great. I mean, David, I mean, she mugs, she sings, she dances. I mean, it's a great part, but it doesn't have the gravitas of The King and I. I mean, where do you see this race going, David?
It's interesting. The morning that we talked nominations day, it really felt like a three horse race between Kelly, Kristen, and Cheetah Rivera. I thought was really in play, and she seems to have fallen back. So I really think it's between those two women. I'm sticking with Chenoweth. I had her from the beginning. I think what I've heard most about Kelly is that it's another great performance in another classic, but it's not her career-defining role or her career best performance. And I think that factor, I mean, she does have the overdue factor, unlike anybody else. She really has the overdue factor, but I think the consensus is that it's another really wonderful performance, but it's not her best performance. And I think people are saying this is, Chenoweth's career best work. And
what's interesting is, last year, really, I mean, Bridges Madison County, she was heartbreaking, and that was a high point for her. She's turned, she really turned into an actress who sings. I thought it was phenomenal. So you're right. I mean, this is a lovely, lovely role, and it's. I wonder what she's coming up next. You mentioned featured actor and actress in a musical, and how these are categories we don't tend to talk about because we get obsessed with the stars. But so, in featured actress in a musical, Sam, you mentioned Judy Kuhn and Sidney Lucas, both of whom are nominated for Fun Home. Judy Kuhn plays the mother, Sidney Lucas, one of three versions of the daughter. Who's going to win that category?
If I was voting, it'd be Sidney Lucas, despite me being the first person to ever call out, like, oh, look at the cute kid nominations, but she's incredible. But I think Judy Kuhn will pull out the win on this one. I think she has the narrative. People have welcomed her back to Broadway for the first time in a long time. The song she gets to sing is really devastating and beautiful, and I think she's gonna take it home for Fun Home.
And David?
Yeah, it's definitely between those two. Personally, I have a hard time backing Kuhn because she was really hyped. The performance was really hyped off Broadway, and now that it's transferred to Broadway, and I was slightly underwhelmed by the role. I was expecting more. Not that she's not great in the role. I'm certainly not speaking ill of her, and she's wonderful. But in comparison, I was blown away by Sidney Lucas. When I wasn't expecting to be so moved by that performance. So for me personally, I would easily, like Sam, vote for Lucas instead of Kuhn. But I think in terms of narrative and overall career, I do have Kuhn winning at this point in time.
And what Lucas has, it's a very big featured role, and I know on the featured male side, I mean, I'm predicting Christian Borle for Something Rotten because I actually thought he plays Shakespeare.
Yeah,
who's kind of the nemesis of Brian Darcy James's character, who's a would-be composer back in Elizabethan times. But Christian Borle, I mean, that's a big, big featured role, and yet I noticed a lot of people are predicting Andy Karl, who I don't recall having even half a song in On the 20th Century. He plays Kristen Chenoweth's sort of lovable lug of a boyfriend, a movie star who's in love with himself more than anyone else. Who do you guys predict is going to win that, David?
I have the nuclear option, and I'm going with Brad Oscar.
Oh, okay. Who?
He's in Something Rotten as well. He plays Nostradamus, the soothsayer that tells D.R.C. James' character that the next big thing in theater is musicals, and he gets that 8-minute-long song, the homage to musicals, and the performance that I was at, and supposedly at almost every performance, that number gets a standing ovation. He's just so, he seems to be, the comparison that I always make to myself is that song and performance really reminds me of the genie in Aladdin last year, kind of taking the featured Tony. I thought Borle was good, and I think he has more industry kind of cachet. But he won recently, a few years ago. And when I left Something Rotten, Brad Oscar is the one that I really remembered the most. So I think he can take it. And I've seen at least in one other prediction article, Brad Oscar. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Oh, okay. And Sam, that's a surprise.
I originally, when earlier in the season, thought Brad Oscar would take it in a slam dunk, but when I saw the show, I mean, I would argue I'm not speaking ill of Brad Oscar. He's wonderful, but when I saw the show, that song, A Musical, was impressive to me because of the staging and because of the writing. His performance is very funny, but it's sort of, it's kind of a one-note zany guy, whereas Christian Borle gets more to do. There's a lot more physical comedy to him. There's just more going on with that character, despite Brad Oscar getting the better song. So I just see it coming down more to Borle versus Carl. I actually have Andy Carl as my prediction right now. And yes, I can't remember a lot of what he's saying. He doesn't really have a big song, but he milks every single entrance and exit in the show, and I still laugh thinking about all the physical comedy he did. And it's actually a really great contrast from the really dramatic performance he was nominated for last year in Rocky. Now he gets to remind people, hey, I'm a really great clown, too.
And didn't John Cullum win the featured actor Tony for the role that Carl's now in? Is that right?
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline won. John Cullum won for lead.
Right, so there's kind of precedent there.
And Carl is really well loved in the industry. Yeah. I think he has plenty of support behind him.
Yeah, no, it's great. So we've done sort of a lot of the top musical categories. I want to shift to play, which I think are less of cliffhangers, but I could be wrong. So starting with best play, I mean, overwhelmingly at Gold Derby, we're saying Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This British import based on a bestseller, very theatrical, but an autistic boy who sort of goes on a hunt to solve a mystery. David, is it winning, or is something else going to pull off an upset?
Yeah, I think the smart prediction is Curious Incident. I don't see anything upsetting that at this point in time. It came out of the gate nominations morning really strong and has only built support. I mean, we talked very briefly about the Tonys' affinity for like these big epic two-part plays. So Wolf Hall, maybe has like that 0.1% chance of upsetting, and we'll say, oh, we should have seen that coming. But I don't think anything can upset Curious Incident.
And Sam, what do you?
Yeah, that's pretty much a lock. Normally, I think Hand to God would be, the one to take it because it's the new American play, and they have been pumping themselves as the American play for a while, and the hometown advantage normally has a great advantage in the Tonys, considering it's written by a New York playwright, but Curious Incident really doesn't have to worry about that category.
Well, what's interesting about Hand to God, which is set in a small town in Texas, and it's a teenage boy struggling with the death of his father, and he finds solace in this puppet that becomes part of him, and it goes from there. It's sort of it's a really dark piece with lots of sort of comic undertones and overtones at times. But do you think that Stephen Boyer, who plays that teenage boy, could pull off an upset over Alex Sharp, who plays the teenage boy in Curious Incident?
He could, because I was surprised in the New York Times voter poll, they said that race is actually very close, closer than we thought. And if they want to give Hand to God something, which there is sort of a lot of affection for it here, that's really the only category they can give it, because no one's going to take down Helen Mirren. Geneva Carr's not going to be able to take down Helen Mirren. And I don't see Sarah Stiles' part as quite big enough to take down her competitors either. So I think Stephen Boyer is the one place they can reward it.
And now up there in lead actor, we've also got Bradley Cooper in a revival of The Elephant Man, which was a huge hit in the winter. If it was running now, do you think Bradley Cooper would be more of a threat David, you're nodding your head. So good. I'm
Yeah,
going to go to you first. You agree with me.
I think he would be. I think he would definitely be in the conversation more. I still don't know if the performance would be enough to upset Alex Sharp, but I think if it was still open today, he would definitely like. I haven't when I've been doing my predictions, I've really always seen it as Sharp versus Boyer. I haven't really considered Cooper. I think if it was running today, I would have. And I mean, he's currently doing it now in London. I think it's open now in London, and he's doing the performance there. So he's continuing the narrative in a sense, but it feels so far removed from what's happening now because it closed so long ago in terms of Tony season that I really just don't think that he's much of a factor. And
but what about in the revival race? I mean, that it's up, and as is Skylight, which is currently running and features Tony-nominated performances by Bill Nye and Carey Mulligan. Sam, is it? Oh, we're on the move.
Sorry, I have to plug in my laptop.
We've talked too long. So okay, well, we're currently, I think, predicting Skylight to win.
We really need to talk about this because I have been really confident that You Can't Take It With You would take this. Even though,
which also closed. In a bad way, it was a limited run, and that's a revival of a play from the 30s that actually the film version won Best Picture, and it's a really wonderful slice of life of a family, and the usual back in the 30s, sort of a poor family and a rich person enters it, and happiness does ensue.
Well, here's my thinking on that prediction. I mean, I'm concerned about keeping it that way. I might change to Skylight between now and Sunday. But to me, the argument that Skylight is still open doesn't hold a lot of water because it's closing on June 21st, and it has no possibility of extension. The stars cannot extend. So Tony voters can't say, well, this one is open and we want to give that the box office support that comes with an award because it's got 2 weeks left and then it has to close. And not that the precursor awards really mean much, but Skylight's lost once to You Can't Take It With You at Outer Critics Circle, and then once to Elephant Man at Drama Desk. I think Elephant Man won at Drama Desk.
Which is interesting about when you're saying about my thing about closed versus open isn't so much commercial. It's just the logistics of
reminder.
Did the Tony voters see Elephant Man? Did they see You Can't Take It With You? Whereas Skylight's on right now, so you know that they're going to see it. Anyway, Sam, you've resituated yourself. You're plugged in, so you're ready to. What do you think? Oh, he's frozen again. He loves that movie so much, people, that he just keeps wanting to enact it. Hopefully he'll join us back in a second. So David, Sam referenced this. Helen Mirren she's reprising the role that won her the Oscar as Queen Elizabeth II in the audience, but whereas the Queen was a week in the life of the monarch, the audience goes back to prior to her becoming queen in the 1950s and goes right up until today.
Right.
I mean, it's a really staggering achievement, I think, to do it on stage, to be 1 minute you're a 20-something-year-old girl, the next you're a 90-something-year-old great-grandmother. So where there's an inevitability to the win, will you be okay if she does win over Carey Mulligan, Elizabeth Moss, Geneva Carr from Hand to God?
Yeah, without a doubt. She's always kind of been, I don't think, I tried to create some suspense when we talked the first time saying, I don't know, guys, if she's really got this sewn up. I mean, she really does. I think Carey Mulligan is a really good second. I thought her performance was terrific. But yeah, I don't think anybody will begrudge Mirren her win for this performance in this role. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, it really is, and then on the featured side, we mentioned You Can't Take It With You. So there's a girl who sort of really stole the show from the likes of James Earl Jones, Annalee Ashford, who plays one of the daughters, and she's kind of goofy and zany, and it's very, very sweet. Now she's been remembered by these precursor prizes, right? I mean, and so are you predicting her to win, or do you have someone else?
Yeah, I have her in first, and I really think that she will win. I do have actually, I think Sam mentioned her earlier, Sarah Stiles for Hand to God. I actually have her in second because it's the kind of performance that I think is memorable enough that if Ashford might have some competition and they want to award Hand to God, that might be a place where they could do it. So I still think Ashford is going to win. I have her in first, but I actually have Sarah Stiles in second.
And Sam, but we're talking about featured actress in a play. What about Patricia Clarkson in Elephant Man? Now, this is a role that won the originator Best Actress in a play, Carol Shelley, and that's all got to do with a question of billing, and she was billed above the title, so therefore she was up there in lead. Patricia Clarkson is in featured, and quite happy to be in featured because the role she plays is only in a few scenes, but they are quite memorable. Do you think she's got any chance on Sunday? Should she get on that plane with Bradley Cooper and come back from London?
Maybe. Sorry, I don't know what's happening in my computer, but I'm back. I don't see her winning. I've been actually kind of confused as to why she's been a front runner, because I mean I've just heard so many things about her being the weak link in that production. So I was surprised to see her sort of rocket up the nominees, but she seems to have a lot of support for that role. I also have Ashford taking it. I think she was the most memorable of a really strong ensemble and is a great way to reward You Can't Take It With You, because I don't think that'll win Revival. I think I dropped out for Revival conversation, but I have Skylight winning that too. So I think this will be the one place where You Can't Take It With You will get something. And
what about over on the featured actor side? Is this the place that Wolf Hall gets something with Nathaniel Parker playing Henry VIII? Is that in this marathon, 6-hour, two-part play?
I think that category is the toughest one to predict. I think you might as well throw a dart on a board. I have Nathaniel Parker taking it. I think he gets the most range out of anyone. He gets to be terrifying and really vulnerable and has a huge amount of emotions to go through, and he's on stage for a lot of the performance, so I think it's him, but anyone could really take in that category. I have a strange feeling that since Skylight is winning Revival, Matthew Beard is going to somehow pull off a huge upset and take that award because he's just really likable. I don't think I have the balls to predict him to win, but I won't be surprised if he actually takes it.
Yeah, I could see that, and he has the bookend scenes in that production too. He starts the show with Carey Mulligan, and then he exits, and Bill Nye does the bulk of the work with her. But then Matthew Beard has the last scene with Mulligan again. He kind of starts and ends this production. So yeah, I could really see him pulling an upset too.
Wow, that's fun. And then I think that. The below-the-line stuff, I think American in Paris is going to do well on the musical side. And what about on the play side? Are things going to be spread out in terms of costume and set and lighting, or is it all Curious Incident?
I think Curious Incident is going to definitely take set and lighting design by a landslide. I think, Paul, you have Wolf Hall on your predictions. You need to change that.
Okay. I will.
Wolf Hall, I think, will get costume design, though.
Yeah, I have that, too. Although I was reading the Time Out New York predictions, and they made a convincing argument for the audience for costume design. I still have Wolf Hall for costume design, but they were saying the quick costume changes for Mirren are quite impressive, but the costumes are also very integral in conveying the passage of time. So that gave me pause on my prediction of Wolf Hall. So I have that in second, a strong second. I think to consider.
We always say this about the Oscars in those categories. It's not so much best, but most. So it's most costumes, most lighting, most sets. So,
Well, The King and I has the most costumes of any production of this year, right?
They're going to win.
Yeah, that's a solid.
Going to win.
Really, over on the 20th Century, because those are gorgeous William costumes.
Catherine Zuber's having a great year. I don't think it's going to be pretty hard to ignore The King and I. The cast is like 50 people for The King and I.
Right. Well, this is when you get a not-for-profit theater staging musicals, they can afford it. And on the 20th Century is also from a not-for-profit at the Roundabout.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up, we didn't mention this when we were talking about musical actress, but Kristen Chenoweth, the co-host of the show, I mean, I think that was a brilliant move on her part, just to in terms of solidifying the win. Are you pleased with them as the co-hosts, Alan Cumming, Kristen Chenoweth? David, is that a show that you'll think will be one that'll go down in Tony history?
Yeah, I'm really pleasantly surprised that they're actually pulling from like theatrical folk. I mean, they've had some that certainly have history with the theater recently. Neil Patrick Harris and Hugh Jackman, but Alan Cumming and Chenoweth are from the theater, so it's really nice to see them. I don't know if it's a great ratings move. You hope that people watch and that it encourages CBS to keep going back to that well and picking people known for theater. So I hope it's successful. I certainly think theater goers who are going to be watching will really appreciate seeing them, and I think they're going to be a really great duo. So
and Sam, you're of the theater, so what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a great pair, and I think they'll be wonderful hosts together. They probably won't pull in the same numbers as Neil Patrick Harris or Hugh Jackman would, but I think they sort of like weirdly complement each other.
Yeah.
And they're promising. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sam.
No, I was just surprised that both of them took it on because they both have, obviously Kristen Chenoweth has her performance, and then Alan Cumming has a cabaret that he's been working on for a while. So they're kind of doing double or triple duty depending on their other schedules. But I think they'll be good.
And they are promising the biggest production number ever. I think 175 people on that stage at Radio City. Well, what's interesting about the Tonys is ratings-wise or not, where it always does well is with the Emmys. It wins Variety Special almost consistently.
Right.
And there was a great piece of news the other day that the two men responsible for the Tonys are now going to take over the Kennedy Center honors. So, and a lot of Broadway people will perform on that. They'll come down from New York and do tributes. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. And we'll have to see how it all plays out on Sunday, and maybe we'll chat again afterwards and have a little recap. But
that'd be great.
Yeah, for now, I mean, I'm still confused, and I will remain confused even as the show's going on. But I urge everyone to make their predictions and really follow these two, Piano Man and Sam Eckmann, before you turn to me. Thanks again.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.